Alright, gang, as promised to you guys last week and earlier on tonight's show, I told you I have my new friend, Bobby Blitz of Overkill, join me by phone right now. Here he is on the ASYLUM. Bobby, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's happening, Togo? Good to be here.
Thank you, man. Thank you for calling in. I'm glad you weren't tired of me after RAD last weekend, man.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was we had a good weekend. It was we did the RAD benefit down in Bellwood, New Jersey, off I think it's Route 27 down there, at a place called Crossroads. So that was really cool. That's where Turbo and I met and decided to do this interview later on, following in the week.
Yeah, man, I'm glad we were able to work it out. And I tell you what, you and the guys had a hell of a jam session going on, and I was wondering, when you guys, when Mark called you up to do that, did you guys, you and Mark sit down and decide what you guys were gonna jam on, or did Mark kind of just say, here's what we're thinking of, and you jumped in from there?
No, it was done a little differently. What ended up happening was I came into the picture a little bit later. I think some of the original posters and internet stuff that you guys were already finished with regard to the artwork. So they had already decided on set lists. This is with Dave from TT and some of the other guys, and obviously band members that these guys have known for forever, Scott, etc. So they handed me a list and just pretty much said, hey, put your name next to whatever you know. And what was kind of weird for me is, like, all the songs that I knew or I thought I knew from when I was a kid, I went and I checked on the internet, and I'm like, oh my God, I know maybe 20% of what the list is about. And I always did the melody and I always did the tune, but all the lyrics I thought were supposed to be sung were totally different. So I took out maybe three songs on that list. I had to kind of start over. So I learned Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and brushed up on that. Some Nazareth, some ACDC, and that was pretty much my contribution to the thing. And the rest of it was handled by Mark. So the list was done prior.
Okay, very cool. I was looking at the set list the other day, and I've been thinking about the night, and I tell you what, anytime I hear ACDC's Dirty Deeds, I think I'm going to think of you and your performance, because, that was as good as anything, man.
I'll tell you something, when it comes to, the old Bon Scott stuff, when I was, when Overkill had started back in, really the early 80s, we were a cover band. And these were some of the Bon Scott stuff that we were, or ACDC stuff was the Bon Scott era ACDC, and we did a few of those. So it was Overkill and pre-Overkill that kind of got me into doing that stuff. And I realized way back then that my voice was cut for it. But it's funny because, probably simultaneously, Mark and TT Quick were doing kind of the same thing. And his voice is always kind of cut for that, too. So it's kind of weird that, we grew up relatively close to each other, at least in the same state, maybe a few counties apart from each other, but have the, same kind of characteristics to our voice.
Yeah, it's just, really amazing how perfect it was for you, going through.
Yeah, there's certain things, it's like I was saying, there's certain things you're cut for. I'm way more cut for the ACDC stuff, and I think I did a couple of Nazareth tunes, and, the Nazareth record that these songs came off of were a record called Hair of the Dog. And I remember this when I was a kid, in high school this record came out, and it was really one of my favorite records, so I was really familiar with the tunes. But I think to some degree, in my head or back in high school or post-high school, I've been singing, knowing these tunes, since that era of its release. So it was a pretty easy thing for me to get through.
Yeah, right. It was something you were familiar with and you grew up on. Like for me, I was a big Kiss fan all through high school. So, when those songs come on, I just literally, like you, it just kicks in like it's second nature, because you grew up on, you listen to it on a regular basis, so you're able just to kind of go right into it.
And the beauty of that is, like, to some degree, it kind of shaves 20 or 30 years off the age right there. You go from whatever age you are right now back to when you first heard that song. So, I think that's the beauty of it. When it comes to any kind of music or any kind of metal or any kind of rock and roll for that matter, it can take you from the present day right back to that era of when you first heard it.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I think why so many people identify with music and even rock and metal, because, no matter how old you get, you've always got those tunes that you're going to, get taken back to when you first heard it and all those feelings you felt then and the energy you felt then, and then maybe afterwards you'll feel it, but during the song, you've got the energy of when you first heard it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think it's probably one of the magics of this genre of music, like the heavier genres of music, is that people that are attracted to it, once you're in forever. It's just the unforgettable thing. They say that the sense that is the most defined and most memorable is scent, but to some degree, I think that it's got to be what goes in through your ears and carves a place out in your heart, especially when it's a tune you heard when you were a kid,
Oh, for sure, man. I can tell you, like, countless songs that'll come on, and I can tell you what time of year it was when the album came out, or what was going on in the world when the album came out, because, it just triggers something. It's like you said, for some people there's a scent memory, but I think for others, like myself and you and musicians and fans of rock and metal, it just seems to be an auditory memory for us, where certain songs will come on, and you just sit there and go, oh, I remember when that came out, it was the summer of this year, and I went and saw this tour, and that band live, and, it just floods everything back.
I think it was, I was doing an interview with, we have a recent release that's just come out last Tuesday called White Devil Armory. And I've been doing a lot of press for it, so I've been talking to people, and it was a magazine, and it was out of Bulgaria. And at the end of it, they always asked 3 questions. One of the questions was, and they fill in the blank afterwards, and I think it was, do you remember where you were when you first heard, and then you fill in the blank. And the album they were talking about was Diary of a Madman. It was the Ozzy record. Do you remember where you were when you first heard Diary of a Madman? And my answer to this guy was, I knew where I was, what I was wearing, what type of beer I was drinking, and how warm it was. I think that's the way this shit affects me. So all the way back then into, I guess that was the late 70s, rather early 80s. I was that's what that question was based on. So probably that's the testimony of what me and you were talking about. Sure, once it's in, it stays forever, and you remember it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Diary of a Madman, unfortunately, I've just discovered that album within the last, I'd say, 5 or 10 years, being a child in the 80s. I missed out on so much good stuff that I'm just getting back into it, and now I'm in my 20s, and now that I'm in my mid-30s and all of that, and so I'm just getting into some of that stuff, and so, I'm making connections now, but, the same connections are there like you had, because it always seems to be around summertime when music really hits everyone gets out to the clubs, and but before we go and talk about White Devil Armory, which I want to talk about with you since it is now out in stores and everyone should go out and get a copy, I wanted to ask you, man, because Crossroads is a very intimate venue. It's not really a big place. What was it like for you to be on a stage in a local venue, again, where everyone was basically like an arm's length away from you? What was that vibe like for you, man?
Well, it's a good question, but I think there's it's not so different than anything or anywhere else. I think that, you know, for a guy like me, I come from this area. I come from the Jersey area. I was born in Jersey City in Harvard Hague. You know, and people in this area have a certain thing about them. I think there's, you know, there's a work ethic that you're born with here. You know, it's something my parents pass on to us. It's something we see in our families. It's something we see with our brothers and our sisters or our parents, or, you know, hopefully something that we, you know, we pass on to somebody else. But I think it's all the same once it starts. You know, it never is any different. You know, and Overkill, you know, has gained a certain amount of notoriety over you know, 2+ decades of touring. And I think the beauty of it is that if all of it can be kind of common when it comes to whether the stage is a small corner stage or whether the stage is a, you know, a festival stage in Europe. I mean, we're doing a show in about 2 weeks in Montreal called Heavy MTL. I mean, and this is going to be approximately 45,000 people. Now, obviously, we're not the headliner. They're bringing in Metallica. Now, when you look at that stage, you think to yourself, oh, my God, you know, this is overwhelming. You look at the stage at Crossroads, you go, I think to myself, I've been here thousands of times. But once it all starts, once you hear, you know, the guitars kick in, once you hear, you know, that 4 count on the hi-hat to get into the song, it doesn't matter. It's all exactly the same, you know. So it's kind of cool, you know, from where I stand, that before, sure, it's all different. But once you're in it and once you're doing it, it's exactly the same. You know, I've never done Madison Square Garden or, you know, the Brennan Byrne or Continental or, you know, the Prue Center over in Newark. But let me tell you something. I know that once it went, you know, once I hear the hi-hat go into the 4 count, there's going to be a certain similarity to it of everywhere I've been for the last 25+ years.
Yeah, I mean that's really, not only is that a credit to, you know, to you personally, but even to you guys as a band, you know, it's Overkill, that, yeah, it doesn't matter the stage size, that you go out there and put on the same show night after night, whether it's you being part of a super group like the Rad All-Stars at the Rock Against Dystrophy benefit, or if it's you out there with Overkill doing the big stages like Heavy Montreal, or like Starland Ballroom later this year with Crown. It's a credit to what you're able to do, and really to the person you are, that it all just kind of melds into one, that the size of the venue doesn't mean anything. I mean, you're able to give your full 110% regardless of what the venue is.
Yeah, and somebody told me, you know, early on, you know, I mean, and it's something that I think that we've always kept as a principle as Overkill, and I know I have for sure, is that you don't play every show like it's your last show. I mean, if you're, you know, what if it is your last show? You don't know. I mean, I don't write the book. You know, I'm only a player in the game. I don't deal with cards. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what's going to happen. So the point is that if you have the opportunity, really squeeze the shit out of the opportunity. And that's what I'm saying with regard to the work ethic, you know, that we have in New Jersey or in the Northeast, that there seems to be, you know, that type of a tenacity. When a person is, you know, I know this area is that when a person's attracted to something and loves something, regardless of it being an internet radio show or singing on a stage, or whether it be a painting, or whether it be a contracting, or whatever that person likes doing, if they do it with that passion, that's what keeps them in the game. And I think that, you know, it's one of the things that I've always noticed from from our area, is that passion. When a person finds that passion is truthful and honest.
Yeah, you're 100% right in that. I mean, anyone that doesn't know that being the case for this area, you know, you being New Jersey, me being from the Brooklyn, New York area, I tell you what, anyone outside of this area, all they need to do is look at the sports rivalry, especially during hockey season, between the Rangers and Devils. There you'll see some passion, if you really want to know what Blitz is talking about.
Let me tell you something, I don't wear red and black to the Garden anymore. I walked into the men's room. I wanted a break, and there was a guy on each side pissing on my motorcycle boots. As I was standing at the Euro.
Oh, that's priceless, man. You see, I got no qualms about it. I go into Jersey in the middle of hockey season wearing my Rangers jersey, but then again, even in the summer, I can get caught because I have a New York Rangers tattoo under my arm, so I'm always showing my colors.
Let me tell you something. If I knew this, I never would have done that fucking benefit.
Yeah. Even Devils and Ranger fans can put the bullshit aside for a good night for a good cause.
There's a love underneath. Let me tell you, there's a love. In there's a girl I went to college with. I'm friends with her and her husband, and they have season Rangers tickets. So whenever the Devils come into the Garden, they take me. Whenever they come to the Proof Center, I take them. So it's a friendly rivalry. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah, I mean it's gotta be like when you got two teams as close as we are. I mean, with the Devils now being at the Prudential Center, essentially it's not even a 20-minute ride unless there's traffic. Then it's a 2-hour ride from Manhattan, from the Garden to the Prudential Center. But the proximity is so close that one, you can't help but have the rivalry, and two, you know what? You're gonna have the jokes. Everyone knows, you know what? It's a team. It's two teams. You can't get nasty about it. Not when you're all neighbors, just over a river, you know.
I tell you, when I first got into hockey, it was I was an adult. I wasn't a kid that was into hockey, right? And I'd been married, first wife, and I had nothing to do. We were getting divorced, and I was thinking to myself, what the hell am I going to do? And I ended up down at the Continental Airlines Arena, the Brendan Byrne, over in the Meadowlands, and would find myself down there even by myself screaming, kill those blue-shirted bastards. And after the divorce was over, I was so level, and I'm thinking to myself, what got me through this? I said, oh, it's a Devil's game.
I tell you, hockey's an amazing sport. It'll get you through just about anything, man.
You're not kidding. It was a great place to focus the energy. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can only tell you how many times I've sat either at the Garden or at home yelling at Marty Brodeur, calling him a fat bastard and every name in the book, hoping he'd choke. And then afterwards, you sit there and go, I feel better, but I don't know why.
I agree. You know what I always tell Ranger fans that do the Marty chant? I said, if for some reason he ended up on your side of the river, then I'm ready to be a statue.
You know what, you're right. And I tell that to everybody nowadays. There's a lot of Ranger fans, myself included, who can't stand Sidney Crosby over in Pittsburgh, and there's a lot of fans around the league that can't stand him. But just like you said with Brodeur, if Crosby was on their team, whole nother story.
You're not kidding.
I love my hockey. Hockey's soon coming around, so you and I will probably be going at it back and forth by text messages during hockey season. Now that I know you're a Devil fan, I'll have to bust your balls.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll see what happens. I don't mind you saying that now. I mind what the action is at the end.
Yes.
I always say to my wife, I say, look at them. They're not hockey fans. They're just Ranger fans. It's like hanging out with a bunch of third graders.
I love it. But let's get away from hockey for a bit. We still got a few months for that now. If you're tuning in late, talking with Bobby Blitz Ellsworth of Overkill. Bobby, you guys have a brand new album out called White Devil Armory. It came out this past Tuesday. I had it by myself a second copy because Nuclear Blast still hasn't gotten me my copy by mail. So I went and got it on iTunes, like so many of the new younger kids are doing. I still prefer CD. And I gotta tell you, Bobby, I love the album from beginning to end. Just an amazing album. I really don't know where to begin talking about it with you, other than maybe start with the one of the bonus tracks, Miss Misery, that you do with Mark Tornillo of Accept, and I had the privilege of hearing this one live with the RED All-Stars. How did you decide, you guys as a band Overkill, decide to do a Nazareth cover for this album?
It's funny. I had a side project back in 2007, and the side project was called The Cursed. And it was with another guy from Jersey, actually a few guys from Jersey, but the person who I put it together with was a friend named Dan Lorenzo. And Dan, from another New Jersey band, one called Hades, the other one called Nonfiction. And Overkill back in the 90s took Nonfiction with them, and that's where Dan and I became friends. And I always liked their vibe. Dan, it was always a doomy, kind of sludgy vibe, and I always thought that Nonfiction was way ahead of their time. And Dan and I became close after that tour. And what ended up happening was he would always send me riffs, and what do I think of this? What do I think of that? Would you ever want to work on something like this? And I just didn't. I mean, I was always busy with Overkill. Not that I didn't like the riffs, but it was always, I was always doing a tour, always doing a record. I mean, when you have 17 records out over 25 years, you're probably pretty busy doing some stuff. You're either promoting it, you're writing it, you're recording it, you're touring it. Something's going on.
Right.
So I never had the time, and it was the winter of, I guess it was '07. My wife's like, you can't ride your motorcycles, it's too icy. Why don't you get a hobby? Why don't you do something? You're walking around here like chicken without a head looking for something to do. Well, in any case, the hobby I picked up was a band called The Cursed. And it turned into this kind of sludgy rock band. I mean, we would use saxophones sometimes to the lead guitar. I loved doing the record. It was like a garage record, garage band type thing. We'd rehearse once a week. There was pin-up girls on the wall. Somebody bringing a six-pack of Heineken. So it was the same vibe that a garage band would have. And I said, man, I'm so enjoying getting back to the beginnings of doing this. Well, in any case, we released the record, and we decided we don't want to tour it or anything, but we got an independent release for it, sold a few copies. We're thinking to ourselves, let's do a first and last show with The Cursed. That'll be the whole tour. One show, done, forever. And we did it down in New York City at a place called the High Line. And because we only had one record and we were going to headline the show, we had to throw in other stuff. And Dan brought it up to me. How about doing some Nazareth? Your voice, your voice and Nazareth go together really well. And it's something that I think people wouldn't expect. And I said, man, I love that record. I love the Hair of the Dog record. Well, in any case, after The Curse, Dee Dee and I had discussed it for Overkill and always wanted to cover a Nazareth tune. But every time that we were coming in or out of the studio from '07 on, we missed it based on time constraints for having to deliver something. So this time we recorded Miss Misery first, and it was really one of the first tracks that were done for the record. The drums were done, they added the multi-layered guitars afterwards, added the bass. So I guess it was last fall, I was asked to do an anniversary party for Eddie Trunk, 25 years on the air. And
I was at that party.
We were at the party, right?
Yeah.
It was a good night. I mean, I sang with JJ from Twisted, and I think Mike Portnoy was on the drums, Billy Sheehan.
Right. Scotty Ian was there, and a whole bunch of people in that all-star band they threw together.
That's right. It was kind of an all-star thing. And Mark was singing, too, that night. And I remember standing next to him, thinking to myself, this guy'd be perfect for this Miss Misery track. And I said, hey, man, you want to do this? He's like, sure, man, whatever you need. Up there. So that was the whole negotiation. Now, Dee Dee and I knew that Mark would fit the song. We knew that it would fit my voice. We said, why don't we get another guy's voice who it fits, and it would be best that he's right here. Best that he's a Jersey guy, so we could So we get them on tape. We make it happen, and we kind of create the two voices. So it was actually pretty good results, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it was a hell of a result. I mean, I personally think it's one of the best, one of the tracks that jumped out at me on the album, as I listened to it. My ears are weird. I don't necessarily have the singles jump out at me. Maybe it's because I end up playing the singles so often prior to the album coming out, but I often don't have the singles jump out at me and kind of grab me by the ear and say, "Yo, Putz, listen to this." But that was the case with Miss Misery when I heard it. And it's funny that you say it was one of the first songs that you guys had gotten and recorded, because on the album, not only is it the last track, but it's a bonus track only on the deluxe edition. How the hell did we go from the first song recorded to the last song on the album?
But when it came to covers, one of the principles of doing covers for an original band was, back in the old days, when you were trying to get the release in Asia, domestic release in Japan would cost a Japanese person more money than an import, because the imports could be made cheaply and the domestic version was much more expensive to manufacture. So we'd always give the Japanese record companies a extra 1 or 2 cuts, bonus tracks. And those cuts were always covers. Bands that we liked, we grew up on, something that, a guy liked, a Sabbath cover, a guy liked we did something by Eric Burden and the Animals. We did some Sabbath, we did some Jethro Tull. We did some really avant-garde stuff for a thrash metal band. But that was the idea of doing a cover. So we just wanted to have the cover on there to be thinking in terms of, remember what we used to do for this? So that was really the idea of doing that cover, was just to be in the state of mind of the thinking of when the domestic Japanese release was more expensive for the Japanese to make than the import would be.
Okay, I got you. Now that explains a lot on my end, because as I said, I'm 34, and I got into rock and metal really in high school and college, and I always had friends of mine that would always, I got the import of this album and the import of that album, and often I'd sit there and look at them sideways and go, why did you spend $50 on an album that you can get for $18 here? And they never gave me an answer. They would always try to give me this look of like, well, you should know, or if you don't know, well, we ain't going to tell you. And now it makes more sense hearing what you're telling me, that there were extra tracks on the ones that were imports for us, but were normal for over in Japan.
It was just, and those extra bonus tracks were just for the Japanese. And this would solidify a release there, because the Japanese kids, the Japanese, people into the band would say, something, I'll spend a little bit more money for the domestic release because I know I'll get something special from Japan, as opposed to, somebody from a Polish distributor sending in 10,000 copies that were an import, for half the price. So that's why it kind of worked for us. So that was the thinking behind doing, a cover tune. And I think it came out great. I mean, that's, one of the things is about that cover is that, Mark and my voice lend itself to the old school vibe of the original song. If you know the original Miss Misery, the guy who sang it's a guy named Dan McCaffrey. They're a Scottish band, Nazareth. And McCaffrey's voice is very much, kind of the father voice of, of Mark Trudillo or Bobby from Overkill. That there's same characteristics in all three voices. His is a little bit more mature than ours, at the time that he had recorded it. But then Mark's voice is very similar, or has many of the same characteristics, and I also have a lot of the characteristics Mark has. So I thought it was kind of a cool blend, even though Mark and I are very different. we have a lot of the same characteristics. So we create a third entity with the voice. And then you take this modern production, or the ability to make something, like a crushing sledgehammer. I mean, you really have something that's special. So I was really happy with the way the song came out.
Yeah, it definitely does work, and what's funny is it's almost like, that's kind of a thing now where, bands are starting to do that. You're seeing more covers now as either bonus tracks or included tracks, and, some cases it's the old swing and a miss, where it's a cover and you sit there and go, well, you really shouldn't have done that, like when Static X did a cover of Whitesnake. I think it was Here I Go Again. It just didn't work in the Static X sense. But here, with you guys, with you and Mark doing the Nazareth cover of Miss Misery, as you said, you guys together created something that in its own works on so many levels that you just sit there and go, it makes sense. And I'm quite sure there are going to be people out there that may hear it and may not even realize it's a cover because of how well it sounds.
Well, I mean, that's a great compliment, and I see where you're going with it, but the idea, I think, for us, too, is to show contrast. I mean, if you play the rest of White Devil Armory, you can hear that there's a cohesiveness to, there's a method to our madness on the original tunes, and it's always kind of been that way with Overkill. We're first and foremost, we're a thrash metal band, but second, we like, grooves, and third, for sure, we like some of the punk rock that we grew up with, whether it be the Ramones or the Dead Boys or the Pistols. We like some of that stuff, and you kind of hear a little bit of all this in our original stuff. But then when you go to like a classic, heavy kind of a rock tune, you know that it's in the band. It's in us, and to some degree in our originals. But this, to me, becomes a departure with modern day presentation and execution. And I think that becomes, let's say, the correlation between the original and the cover tune is that presentation and that execution. So that's where I think how it fits or carves a niche between the original tunes to be able to stand there and not just be a sore thumb.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nice blend of what Overkill is known for and still being, a tribute to the original at the same time. It's that perfect blend of two where you go, yeah, it's a cover, but yeah, we also know it's an Overkill cover. So, I mean, that's where I can see what you're saying, that it's a connection of the two. And, you bring up the grooves on the album that you guys get into, and it's totally true. On White Devil Armory, the new album from Overkill in stores now. One of the songs that, like I said, grabbed me by the ear literally was Down to the Bone. I mean, there's a hell of a nice kind of bluesy groove thing going on about midway through that one.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about. There becomes your similarity, I mean, if you're looking at a song like Miss Misery, it's really just this hard rock, bluesy groove that's going on. So that's in us in songs like Down to the Bone. The bands, it's not just about chaos. It's about, sometimes it's about, taking the train as fast as it'll go, but keeping it on the tracks. And that's what I see in songs like Down to the Bone. It still has that, that heavy rock groove melody throughout it, but always appears as if it's going to fall off the tracks. So the key is keeping it on the tracks.
Exactly. I mean, you guys definitely did that with Down to the Bone. And, as I was listening to the album, the other song that jumped out at me was, I'm trying to remember lyrics now. I don't remember if it was Freedom Rings or Another Day to Die, both great songs on the album White Devil Armory. But one of them references came in like a storm. And did you write it in around the time of Hurricane Sandy? Because one of those two have a vibe, like they came out of what was going on during Superstorm Sandy. It's
a pretty cool correlation you're making. I mean, I never actually say that in the lyrics it's always been, you know, I'm always kind of proud about my area. I mean, you can tell through the interview. It's, you know, I'm a Jersey guy, tried and true. It's, you know, there was a period of time where I was in New York State growing up. But I was born in New Jersey. I was conceived in New Jersey, born in New Jersey. And then as soon as I had the opportunity as an adult, I came back to New Jersey. But I lived in New York when I was a kid growing up. But they, you know, I mention New Jersey in our songs. I'm not going to say continuously, but I make sure it's in there in every record to some degree or another. And there is that vibe, and it's in a song called Freedom Rings, where I start talking about, you know, that whole period of time and what I felt as being part of that period of time, going through it with, you know, with neighbors, other Jerseyites, people across the river in New York, people in Connecticut, you know, the whole tri-state area. So sure, there is that correlation, and I think that becomes the key to, you know, for me anyway, it becomes the key to writing lyrics or writing melody even beyond that, is to say, you know, write about what you know, man. You know what I'm saying? Write about, sure you can be abstract, and sure you can make it a little bit more interesting, but write about, you know, some of the shit that you go through, some of the shit you know. Because if it's what you know, it'll be taken more so as, let's say, a truthful representation lyrically of what somebody's listening to. You know, you know, I listen to something where I go, and I don't feel that. I go, this fucking guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He was never there. But when it's truthful, it means all the world to me. So it's a good correlation or a good pickup on it, because for sure that's laced throughout the record.
Yeah, I mean, you know, anyone that knows Overkill and knows you guys wear, you know, your roots on your sleeve. You're loud and proud of where you guys come from, and that's, you know, that's something I guess not many bands did, you know, back then. A lot of bands, once they got out of their area, it's like, yeah, well, we're from that area, but we're a national band, you know, and where you guys say, listen, we're a national band, we're a worldwide band, but we know where we came up, where we're from, and, you know, you guys always managed to pay homage to that, and I think, I mean, really, only you guys can get away with a song called King of the Rat Bastards, and if that doesn't say Jersey, I don't know what does, man.
You know what I did with this record lyrically was, and probably give you an idea more, you know, once you hear it, you know, maybe the next spin or a couple spins from now, you'll say, now I get it. You know, I've done 17 records, so I've been involved, you know, to some degree or another. Every record's had 10 songs. So I've been involved in about 170 songs. So it becomes harder and harder to not repeat oneself. I think it's, you know, it's necessary to kind of try to push the envelope. So what I did is I always write from emotion based, because I know my own emotions. You know, I'm an authority on my own emotions. I may not be good with them, but I'm authority on them. I'm the one who knows how I feel. I don't know how everybody else feels. And I truly believe that it becomes the lowest common denominator between the guy writing it and the guy or the girl listening to it. Is that somewhere in there you make connection with that lowest common denominator. And what I did on this record was, I said, how am I going to make this different for me? And I'm not much on concept, but I am big on writing short stories. So what I did was I took those emotions and I kind of put them all out on a table, written down, you know, different things. And I started messing with them, and I realized that Dee Dee was writing based on the word armory. He was looking for, let's say, a key or a thread to make his riffs happen. And that's the key to the set, because he kept talking about armory. So what I did was I created a character based on those emotions. And the first song is a song called Armorist. And really what I did through the whole record was I took that character from song to song. This is kind of his adventures. You know, if he starts off as Armorist, that's his introduction. It's really about isolationism. It's really about some degree loneliness. It's about knowing you're alone, but not knowing how the hell you got there, but still being efficient at what you do. So I take him through these kind of like little short stories that are based on these emotions, I was trying to get him to a spot where he realizes that his value is not singular, but that is part of something else. By the time he gets into the song King of the Rat Bastards, he's part of a group. He's part of, the Furious Five. He's part of, he's the guy in that 8-cylinder car who's banging the Hearst shifter trying to get out to the Statue of Liberty. So the point is that these are all short stories that I try to make interesting based on those motions. And that's where I think the lowest common denominator works. But King of the Rat Bastards is when he actually starts picking up some people to realize that he's more powerful in a group as opposed to singular.
I got you. Yeah, I get the whole thing, the whole idea of what you're saying there. And, and really, that's really the best way to do it. I mean, there are too many bands in recent years, take, Judas Priest, for example. We all love Priest, but there are a lot of people that have said, Nostradamus, if you would have took that album, chopped it down to 8 songs off of the double that it would have been a typical Priest album, and it wouldn't have lost people in the concept. And in some cases like that, sometimes you lose an audience, or maybe you gain one or two. But if you're able to do like you did on the newest album, White Devil Armory, and like I know you've done in the writing in previous albums, like you said, just take each song as a short story and meld it all into one, then the album as a whole has a better chance of working in just that aspect as an entire piece instead of being 1 or 2 songs here and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely, man. Listen, man,
yeah, for sure.
We've had you on. We're almost on here an hour now, and I don't want to keep you too much longer. I'm sure you're busy recuperating from whatever press you've been doing this week. So I want to thank you, Blitz, for joining me tonight here inside the Asylum, and hope you kick some ass up at that heavy Montreal festival, man.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. I mean, that's like the Met Lecturine up there. It's going to be the second weekend in August, and it's but we're on it. Exodus from California, Anthrax from the area here, Metallica, Slayer from California. It's going to be just one killer lineup.
It looks like a great show. I tell you, if I was able to get up there, I would, but I don't know if they want me up in Montreal. I don't know how those Canadians feel about us Ranger fans after last season.
We gotta go do a game.
Oh, you got it, man.
We gotta do a game, man.
You got it, man. We'll definitely do a game. We'll do it at the Garden, man. We'll do it on my home turf at the Garden. I got disabled ticket sales on my speed dial at the Garden. So we definitely got to do a game.
Hey, Turbo, you know what we call that over in Jersey? It's
What's
very
that?
simple. We call that chicken shit.
Hey, listen, man. I got a Ranger blue 9-foot tall van that I travel in. It may be called chicken shit, but I want to leave New Jersey with that van after the game.
All the things I've done in my entire life, whether it be touring, whether it be singing, whether it be getting a record deal, whether it be health issues I've gone through, whether it be trying to make things happen, the thing I'm the most proud of is standing up in section 410 in Madison Square Garden with my red shirt on. I stood there while everybody else was sitting and I yelled, "Fuck you, you blue-shirted bastards."
Yeah. I tell you what, that is just priceless, and I can just see it now. And you're right, we got to do a game this season for sure, man. Well, we got to definitely figure one out. I know you'll be out on tour with Prong later this fall, so maybe we'll work something out when you get done with that tour.
Hey, bro, I look forward. That sounds like a hell of a lot of fun.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Listen, what should I play from White Devil Armory before I let you go?
Keep playing King of the Rat Bastards as long as we talk about it.
Alright, man, sounds good. Coming up right now here.
I can introduce it for you, so.
Hey, go for
what do you
it.
say? Hey, what do you say? This is Bobby Blitz from Overkill with all those heavy metal hits. That's right, I'm on Turbo right now. From White Devil Armory, King of the Rat Bastards.